Okay, good morning and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Yevamos daf Iyun Vav 76. The Mishnah Iyun Vav and Aleph, towards the middle of the daf, lower half of the daf. Psu adach of Krishapum Latarin, Vigiyoires Umishuchreres, Ve'enan Asturin Emela Malava Bakal, Shnever Leava Psu adach Krishapum Bakal Hashem. Someone who can't who can't reproduce, has crushed testicles, severed penis on the top, he can't reproduce. It says in the Torah, you can't marry to the Kal Hashem, the congregation of God. Just like a mamzer, it says the same thing. A mamzer also can't marry to the congregation of God. But he could marry certain people that are Jewish, just not part of the congregation of God. For example, Giores, a woman who converts. She was originally not Jewish, and then she converted. She's Jewish now, but she's not part of the Kal Hashem. And also, Shifcha Mishuchreres, she was a slave, Shifcha Kananiyah, so she became free, now she became a complete Jewess, but she's still not part of the Kal Hashem. So, what's going on over here? I like to suggest that there's two parts to every Jewish person. There's the Kedushas Yisrael, and then there's the Kal Hashem, which is clear. A Giyoros and Shifcha Mishuchreres are not part of the Kal Hashem. A Nesina, right, a convert from the 7 nations, also might not be part of the Kal Hashem. What's going on over here is that there's Kedushas Yisrael and Kal Hashem. Kal Hashem comes from the word congregation, literally means congregation. Basically, it's outward appearance, what you're recognizable, what people see from the outside. You're part of a congregation, right? You go to a shul, everyone looks the same. You go to Bnei Yeshivas here in Telstone, right? Everyone looks the same. They're wearing white button-down shirts, even in the summer. They're wearing the tzitzis out. This is part of the. I have to give in on this point, even though last week I started wearing white polo shirts, but I was told, sake of shalom bias, and I was told, I decided for the sake of shalom bias, it's better not to stand out, not to be Horishim, or part of the Kal Hashem. I mean, obviously it has to be, what I might retort to that is it has to be a Kal Hashem, it has to be a real minhag, it has to be something that's rightfully part of the Kal Hashem, a good culture. But Kal also sounds like culture. Culture is something which is recognizable from the outside. Your culture is the minhagim, is the customs that people do on the outside. They wear white and black. I wear white and blue pants. Sits us out. These are culture, and that's part of the Kal Hashem. You go to a congregation, people look the same. They dress the same. They act the same on the outside. They talk the same. So that's part of your culture. And the problem is that Giyoris, they were, I don't know for how long, 20, 15 years, their youth, they grew up with a Christmas tree. So they're not culturally the same. Even when they do it, they speak Hebrew. They're still looking at the transliteration. They're not on the outside even. They're not culturally there. They might take on some new customs. They'll never do it exactly the same way as someone who's from birth. FBB from birth without different customs, different culturally than them. And then there's something called ethnics, right? Ethnicity, which basically is that you're doing something. Ethnic sounds like ethics almost. You're doing something justified. It's not so much it has to be recognizable on the outside. It just means that you're in line with the religion, or you're in line with a type of people based on a certain set of morals and a certain set of values, and there's no blemish in your values or in your ethics, and your values. There's no blemish in your ethics and your values. For example, a mamzer, and that would be Kedushas Yisrael. That would be Kal Yisrael, the congregation. Kedushas Yisrael is somebody who has good ethics, or ethics pertain to him. He's a justified Jew. He's a virtually moral and ethic Jew. So a mamzer, even though it's not his fault, but he was born in a forbidden union. So ethically, there's a problem with him. He loses Kedushas Yisrael, a mamzer. Is he part of the Kal Hashem? He was born a Jewish person. He was born from birth. Culturally, he's not doing anything different. He grew up in the synagogue. He knows what to do. He knows to wear white and black. He's not doing anything wrong, but he's a mamzer. So Kedushas Yisrael he doesn't have. A mamzer can't marry into the Kal Hashem. he can't marry into someone that's culturally part of Jewish because he has a different psul. He doesn't have Kedusha Israel. He doesn't have the ethical standing, the moral standing of a regular Jew. And the same thing would apply to psul daka, someone who lost the ability to reproduce. He's on a lower level uh, ethically and morally. It's hard to understand exactly ethically and morally. Just his kedusha, his ability to I don't know the right word exactly. His holiness, meaning his ability to live like everybody else. Meaning one of it's mitzvah in the Torah to reproduce. Someone who's deficient in that, he can't reproduce. He's not ethically, he's not morally on the same level. His bia with women is not capable of reproduction. It's a lower standard of kedusha. So he lacks kedusha Israel to a daka, and mamzer lack kedusha Israel. They're not allowed to marry a regular Jew, full Jewish woman. Hashem. But they are allowed to marry Giras and Shiklim Shugaris because Giras and Shiklim Shugaris are not part of the culture and that culture, and each one has their own mum, each one has their own pagam. It's a moral lacking, whereas one has a moral lacking, one has an ethnical lacking, and one has a cultural lacking. They can marry each other. They both have different deficiencies. The Gemara digresses to discuss a Kohen who's a psua daka, is he allowed to marry a Giyaris and Meshuchreris? And it would come out through this that Kedusha, Kohen, it says Kedusha, right? V'kidash to, he's supposed to treat him with extra Kedusha. And we just explained that a mamzer and psua daka lose their Kedusha Israel. So assuming Kedusha's Kohen is not only a status of a regular Jew has Kedusha Israel, but also a Kohen has an elevated status. I would say a Kohen is like, the word Kohen sounds like katan. Katan are small, like stars. Stars are small, you can't see them. Kohen is not necessarily Zara Aaron. Anyone who's a star, a celebrity, would have the din of a Kohen. You have to treat them special. You have to give them extra accolades, extra presents. They are treated, it's a Metzias, they're treated differently. Stars are treated differently. A Kohen is someone treated differently. So a Kohen who's a psua daka, he's ethically, morally lacking. He loses that, just like he loses the kedusha. Well, the Gemara really doesn't answer this question because he's on such a elevated status to begin with. So a little bit lack of reproduction, does that completely remove him or not? So that's the Gemara's question. The Gemara really doesn't answer the question. Zion seems to indicate in Mishpat over here that he doesn't retain his kedusha, and he would be allowed to marry a Giyar Meshucharis, which would make sense because it's all based on kedusha. It's a higher standard of kedusha, but he's morally lacking, so he loses all that kedusha. So he can marry the Giyar Meshucharis. Anyway, so that would be the discussion over here. I want to add one addendum to that, is that we discussed the difference in a mumar and a meshumah. A mumar is somebody that exchanges a Christmas tree for, culturally, he exchanges on the outside things for Judaism. It's mumar. He trades one thing for the next. On the outside, he's not part of the Kal Hashem, a mumar. A meshumah is somebody who acts Jewish, completely Jewish, but he's an atheist, someone who he's mumashumah la'arelis. He wants to destroy the religion. He wants to uproot the religion, but it's only intellectually he wants to uproot the religion. He could act like a Jew. He has a moral lacking. So a meshumah would be part of the Kal Hashem, but he would lack the Kedusha Israel. And a mumar would be the opposite. He would not be part of the Kal Hashem because he doesn't culturally look like it. But ethically, he does retain that. He retains Kedusha Israel. As a meshumah wouldn't have Kedusha Israel, but he would be part of the Kal Hashem. Interesting to note, questionable whether it had ramifications, marrying, who we allowed to marry, who not allowed to marry. It's a different time. See you tomorrow. Bye.